Welcome to Manga's Seal YouTube channel. The previous video link is on the description box or on the top right card. Volume 12. The Paladin of the Holy Kingdom. Everyone present held their breath. Nia was no exception. Why could the Sorcerer King speak about the true nature of their circumstances? How had he divined this? Pinpointing the cave issue was particularly impressive. The captain and Gustavo's faces were stony masks, only their eyes turning to look at Nia. They must have thought she had leaked the truth to the Sorcerer King. Therefore, Nia shook her head, to indicate it wasn't me. The Sorcerer King ignored Nia and the others' shock, and continued speaking. The strength of the South is untouched, but yet you did not seek to cooperate with them and conduct joint operations. That is because a rift exists between yourselves and the Southern nobles. That being the case, once you, who failed to protect the Holy Queen, fall under the command of the new Holy King, it will probably be very difficult for you to hold on to your previous positions. Therefore, you cannot offer me land, titles, trade concessions, and other such privileges. If you actually kept your words on this matter, the possibility of war with my Sorcerer's Kingdom exists, depending on what the next Holy King decides. The Sorcerer King clearly highlighted the key points of the war with the Demihumans, as well as the decisions they had made about their future. Similarly, you cannot use your nation's treasures as bargaining capital. For instance, the holy sword which you bear, Captain Remedios. If you actually did try to trade them, the most you could do was treat the country's treasures as having been plundered by Jaldabaoth, and then turn them over to me. However, doing so is very dangerous. Should someone inform the next Holy King that said wealth was actually obtained from you, trust in you paladins will most likely sink like a stone. Worthless, in other words. Therefore, all you ladies and gentlemen can do is what you did at the audience chamber, informing me of your plight. I imagine that I have hit the nail on its head, given the expressions on your faces. After saying all this, the Sorcerer King leaned back against the back of a chair. Silence filled the room. Perfect. He was just too perfect. Nia felt nothing but respect for the Sorcerer King's reading of the situation. Was this the man they called the Sorcerer King? Nia thought. Nia had once met the Holy Queen close up, but the Holy Queen had simply greeted her, and Nia had not had the chance to truly interact with a true monarch. To Nia, now was her first time meeting an absolute ruler, one possessed of a dignity and insight that surpassed all others, in addition to incredible might, or in other words, a perfect being. This powerful impact left an indelible impression on Nia's heart. That said, anybody could have imagined that. In truth, I am somewhat ashamed of coming in here and smugly spouting all that. I trust you all did not think I had not even considered that much. Though of course, your majesty. Gustavo replied with a stiff smile on his face. Wonderful. If I had been regarded as an idiot who could not even think of that much, I would not be able to face my subordinates who labor for my sake. Now then, based on all that, let me be clear about what I want, which would be maids. I want maids. Everyone, Nia included, could only stare dumbfounded at the utterly ridiculous words which had just left the Sorcerer King's mouth. My apologies. I was being unclear. How shall I say this? I believe that during our previous meeting, the topic of Jaldabaoth possessing powerful maids came up. Those are what I want. What degree of magical knowledge do you have? None at all. After Remedios said so, the Sorcerer King looked around, as though seeking help. Is that so? Well, in that case, I wonder where I should start explaining from. Well, that too. You can imagine that Jaldabaoth has bound the maids to him by some mechanism. Therefore, my plan is to defeat Jaldabaoth, take that formula for my own, and then place the maids under my control. In this way, my country will gain powerful minions. But we have not sighted those maids of Jaldabaoth. Gustavo's answer made the Sorcerer King chuckle. They were sighted in the kingdom, after all. I find it hard to imagine they were not there. Or perhaps they will not appear until Jaldabaoth is forced into dire straits. Let me repeat myself, we are not sure if the maids actually exist. What will your majesty do in the event that the maids do not exist? We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I am not asking you to produce something that could substitute for it, in any case. At the very most, I will just write it off as a wasted effort. However, there is a possibility that they might have appeared outside of a maid's guise, so my request will probably include Jaldabaoth's subordinates as well. That's right. He might have used some kind of special item to dominate them, so I intend to add a condition that any of Jaldabaoth's magic items which cannot be determined to be the property of the Holy Kingdom will be mine. It may turn out that the maids which ravaged your Holy Kingdom might end up becoming part of my Sorcerer's Kingdom, and in that event, I hope I can count on you forgetting your grudges against them, since they will then fall under my rule. You mean you want us to forgive people who might devastate our country? After Remedios retorted unhappily, the Sorcerer King shrugged. That is because I stand to gain nothing else from the Holy Kingdom. Or do you mean to say you have something else to offer me? Remedio's bitter lip, unable to answer. Your Majesty, the captain means to say that as outsiders, it will be very difficult for us to convince the victims to forget their grudges. Then you will simply have to work hard to convince them. The Sorcerer King said in a cold voice. No, then, just say that the maids were dominated by the Sorcerer King's magic and taken away. That ought quell their hatred somewhat, no? What would they do? Nia thought as she heard the Sorcerer King speak. If they still refused to accept the Sorcerer King's terms after he had made this many concessions to them, it was very likely that they would end up with nothing to show for it. It was plain that these were extraordinarily favorable terms for the Holy Kingdom. If they did not seize this chance, then the only word to describe them would be foolish. That would be quite vexing, allowing those who ravage. Your Majesty, Gustavo shouted over Remedio's words. Please allow us to discuss this for a moment. Please give us some time. Do you still need to discuss matters after he's compromised this much? Even Nia felt that it would not be strange for the Sorcerer King to rebuke them. But, very well. However, taking too long will cause me problems, and moving around is troublesome. You don't mind if I wait here, do you? Nia could not help but be surprised by the Sorcerer King's largesse. Thank you very much. Then, we shall quickly discuss things. I pray you will be patient, despite the disservice we do you. That's fine. Go talk it out. The two of them rose to leave, and then there turned with surprising swiftness. No, they had already reached a conclusion from the beginning. Forgive the delay, Your Majesty. Oh no, go ahead and discuss more, it's fine. Well then, how goes it? Yes, our conclusion is that we will abide by all of Your Majesty's terms. I am not asking you to obey me. I am simply making a trade. Well, that doesn't matter. Now then, well, we should put it in writing. I lack the necessary equipment and stamps. Let us discuss this later. You don't mind if I use the kingdom's writing, no? There are people here who can read it, so it is fine. Then, may I trouble you to introduce us to the person who is on par with Momon? Ah, he is standing before you right now, in other words, myself. Silence filled the room once more, and Nia and the others were unable to speak as they stared. After blinking several times, their brains finally regained the ability to function. Your Majesty is as strong as Momon. Remedio's words made Nia freeze in place, but there was a man who had made a move because of these words. Please wait a moment, Captain. There's something else we need to ask His Majesty before this. Gustavo turned to the Sorcerer King. Ah, will it really be all right if Your Majesty leaves your nation and goes to the Holy Kingdom? I do not know how much time that will take. That will not be a problem. Unlike Momon, I can use teleportation magic. So long as I can find your base, I can move between it and the Sorcerer's Kingdom at any time. Ah, but even so, surely having the ruler of a nation come in person is just too. After listening to me, did you not think that I would be coming in person? I did say I intended to defeat Jaldabaoth and bring the maids under my control, you know. It would be too much of a stretch to do all that, from the Sorcerer's Kingdom. In addition, with regards to Captain Custodio's question, I am stronger than Momon. Then, there should be no problems with that, Gustavo. Of course there's problems with that, Your Majesty. This jest of yours is really quite vexing for us. The Vice-Captain clutched his gut as he shouted at. This is no jest. Nobody other than me can defeat Jaldabaoth. In addition, I will be going by myself. I will not bring an army with me. Therefore, I came alone in order to discuss the matter in private with you. But if Your Majesty sustains an irrecoverable injury from Jaldabaoth, that would be very bad for the relationship between our country and the Sorcerer's Kingdom. It is as Gustavo says. Your Majesty, are there truly no problems in that respect? None at all. But, Gustavo, I'm still talking. Don't interrupt me. After holding out her hand to stop Gustavo, Remedios bowed deeply. Then, we will be in Your Majesty's care. The air in the room calmed, as if a storm had just passed, and indeed, it had, but Gustavo's shout echoed, off the walls. What are you thinking? Recruiting a king. The king of the country. To fight Jaldabaoth and win it. Nia agreed with him. He might not operate by common sensibilities, but this was simply senseless. Amidst all this, Remedios spoke quietly. Say, don't you think that it doesn't matter what happens to the undead? The room fell silent once more. You have a demon, and you have an undead being. We wouldn't be harmed regardless of who gets wiped out. Don't you think? Gustavo's eyes went wide. This was not acceptance of his captain's opinion, but shock at what his captain had just said. Both of them are enemies of mankind. Then ideally, it would be best if both sides destroyed each other. That said, we wouldn't just sit back and reap the profits. Even if the Sorcerer King is wounded unto death by Jaldabaoth, we will not take advantage of his plight. However, that is all. Remedio's voice grew louder. Captain, if the Sorcerer King, who controls so many undead, is destroyed, then when these undead are freed, will it not cause an incredible amount of havoc? When the time comes, the kingdom, the empire, and the theocracy will cushion the blow. Of course, we will do our best to aid them as well, but the Holy Kingdom has been too badly ravaged by Jaldabaoth. Until our country recovers its strength, all we can do is cheer them on. From that point of view, our country stands to gain the most from the clash between Jaldabaoth and the Sorcerer King. Captain. Gustavo's face was stone as he spoke. How is this justice? It is. It's all for the sake of our nation. It is to save the people who suffer the most. It isn't like I hope that the seeds of suffering will spread to other countries. I also wish for the victory of the Sorcerer's Kingdom as it assists the Holy Kingdom. Who is this? Nia thought as she looked at Remedios, who was saying all this in a calm, even tone. Was this really the captain of the Paladins of the Holy Kingdom, Remedios Custodio? Nia was not too clear about her situation. After all, she had always been looking at her from afar. However, she felt that this was a completely different person from the captain she had heard of. Gustavo, you don't object, right? If you can accept this, then we ought to consider our next move. Our next move, you say? We have to think about how to properly make use of the Sorcerer King. A chill ran down Nia's spine. Why am I hearing a conversation like this? Nia thought. No, she was not alone. Peering around, she saw that the paladins standing near her all had the same expression on their faces. Nia must have looked the same way too. Gustavo, do you have any ideas? No, not at all. Shouldn't we think about what we should do after bringing the Sorcerer King back with us? Well, if the Sorcerer King isn't all talk and he really can fight Jaldabaoth, how about retaking the capital? And then we can ask him to defeat Jaldabaoth right after that. That would be bad. His Majesty has said that he intends to defeat Jaldabaoth, claim the maids for himself, and then return to his country. Therefore, we ought to leave defeating Jaldabaoth for last, in order to reap the greatest benefits. If we follow your suggestion, Captain, we won't have the strength to defeat the leftover Demihumans. Then what do you propose? Gustavo paused to think, and then he made a suggestion. Let's increase our numbers first. In other words, we need to rescue our captured comrades from the camps. I see. An excellent idea. After all, there are important people we need to rescue. You mean the members of the royal family, right? Remedios agreed with an awe. Although the Holy Queen had already perished, they had not received news that the entire royal family was dead. If one of them was still alive, perhaps they could use them as a figurehead, and perhaps gain the full cooperation of the southern nobles. Also, the nobles we can rescue will surely appreciate their liberators. Most nobles had not expressed their approval of the Holy Queen, and by the captain's reckoning, there was nobody there who liked her. However, there ought to be some northern nobles with blood ties to the southern nobles. If they did them a favor, they ought to be able to better make a formal request to the southern nobles. Remedios looked at Nia. Squire Nia, go accompany the Sorcerer King. Make sure you sway him to our side for our sakes. Ha. Please wait. I can't possibly serve a king or something as a squire. All you need to do is work hard on it, no? This isn't a matter of working hard. Usually, she would have agreed immediately, but now she was desperately trying to refuse. This was not something she could casually accept. There must be something wrong with Remedios' head. That's right. Captain, Gustavo chipped in. If we don't have someone of appropriate status to serve as his handmaiden, it'll be taken as an insult to His Majesty. How many other women are there in the Liberation Army? Those women who could not fight had long since fled to the south. However, that was not to say that they did not exist. The Liberation Army still had a few women among them. Gustavo was about to name some of them when the captain cut him off. We need a woman from the Paladins. If I gave orders to a woman from the priesthood, what do you think the temples would do? My sister's no longer around, you know. Also, the person for this duty should be chosen from people who are present and who have heard my thoughts. Can we force this onto a third party? So instead you're pushing it onto me, right? Nia thought, but did not say. In that case. Gustavo looked at the captain. I need to be fighting on the front lines, you know. Also, do you want me to go accompany the Sorcerer King? Or should we yield all authority to the Sorcerer King? Even if we're using him, we can't just go out and do that, right? There will be problems with trust, and if the Sorcerer King sees that we have no fighting power and decides to conquer the Holy Kingdom while he's at it. After seeing the tongue-tied Gustavo, Nia realized the fact that their allies might end up turning on them. Understood. Well, I might not be sufficient for the task. I will work hard and do my best. I'll tell you this first. Your mission is make the Sorcerer King more easily usable. Flatter him and keep him in a good mood. This was no longer just an impossible request. It was just plain absurd. She had no confidence that she could do such a thing at all. However, no matter what she said, Remedios would not change her mind. Nia hung her head in resignation. Understood. I will do my best to achieve that aim, and I hope I can count on the aid of everyone here. Good. If there's anything, just look for me or him. Even as despair filled her heart, Nia was surprised that she was actually feeling a little elated. His Majesty, huh?